We took off from Tulagi at 0137 hours. The night was thick, blacker than oil, blacker than sin. No moon, no stars, no lights. Just the dark and the drone of that old PBY Catalina beneath me, humming like a prayer. I was 23, just a kid, but that night, I felt 100 years old. We were flying low, real low, maybe 100 feet off the water, because up high, the Jap Zeros were waiting. And radar? We didn't have any of that. Just a map, a compass, and guts. Our Catalina was painted flat black, so black it seemed to vanish into the night. We called it the Black Cat. And she was silent, patient, and deadly when she had to be. Our job was simple: find the enemy fleet near Guadalcanal before they found us. After 2 hours of slicing through the dark, we spotted her, a silhouette barely visible off Iron Bottom Sound, a Japanese cruiser, lit just faintly by the glow of her own engines. We crept in close, radioed her position, marked it. Didn't drop a single bomb that night. Didn't have to. An hour later, I saw the first flashes on the horizon. U.S. cruisers opening up, shells screaming overhead like demons let loose. And all I could think was, we did it. We found them. And we got the word home in time. The PBY wasn't glamorous. She wasn't fast. But she was reliable. And she had heart. In a world of noise and chaos, she was the silent scout, the eyes in the dark. And sometimes, that's all the difference in war. It's a short story by a friend of mine, Lieutenant Hopkins. A story about how a hulking behemoth, affectionately called the Pig Boat by its American crews, would become one of the most versatile weapons in the Allied arsenal. This video pays tribute to the PBY Catalina's enduring legacy, celebrating its unsung contributions to maritime success and its place as a true legend of the skies and seas. Curtiss designs a new kind of aircraft. While many aviation pioneers focused on conquering the skies above land, one visionary saw the vast potential of water as both runway and refuge. In 1910, Glenn Curtiss, a motorcycle racer turned aircraft designer, began reshaping naval aviation through a daring proposition that airplanes could safely take off from and land on ships at sea. The birth of the flying boat. The theory became reality in November 1910, when pilot Eugene Ely launched his Curtiss aircraft from a wooden platform built atop the cruiser USS Birmingham. 2 months later, he completed the cycle by landing on the USS Pennsylvania in San Francisco Bay, forever proving the concept of shipboard operations. However, Curtiss wasn't satisfied with merely adapting land planes to maritime use. On January 27, 1911, at San Diego Bay, Curtiss himself piloted what would become a new category of aircraft, the first true seaplane, lifting directly from the water's surface. This breakthrough led to the development of the Curtiss Model F, a biplane flying boat with a single engine mounted between wing struts that drove a pusher propeller. These early hydro-aeroplanes, as they were sometimes called, featured hulls initially shaped like conventional boats. But Curtiss soon introduced a critical innovation, the step hull, with a notch about 1/3 back from the nose, allowing the aircraft to rotate during takeoff without the rear fuselage dragging in the water. The Model F quickly evolved into a remarkably versatile platform. In August 1913, a Navy C-2, as the Model F was designated in military service, made history as the first aircraft to fly under automatic control when equipped with Elmer Sperry's gyroscopic stabilizer. Later, on November 5, 1950, this same aircraft, by then redesignated AB-2, became the first to launch via catapult from a moving warship. Yet it was conflict that truly demonstrated the flying boat's value. In April 1914, another Model F, designated AB-3, became the first American military aircraft to see combat action during operations over Veracruz, Mexico. How the Navy saw potential in water-based aviation. What made these ungainly waterbirds so appealing to military planners? Consider the Pacific Ocean's vast expanses. How could you support far-flung operations with traditional aircraft requiring prepared runways? As Lawrence Rees, an amphibious aviation expert, noted, if you can land on the water, then you have the largest runway in the world. This strategic thinking led the U.S. Navy to invest millions in long-range flying boats during the 1930s, with potential conflict brewing in the Pacific, where troops would require resupply across enormous distances. Water landing capability offered unmatched versatility. In October 1933, the Navy launched a competition, contracting Consolidated, Martin, and Douglas to build competing prototypes for a patrol flying boat with a 3,000-mile range and 100-mile-per-hour cruise speed. Consolidated Aircraft's brilliant designer Isaac Ladden answered with the Model 28, designated XP3Y1 by the military. Ladden's creation featured several revolutionary elements. A parasol-mounted wing with internal bracing to reduce external struts, retractable stabilizing floats that folded upward to become wingtips in flight, a two-step hull design similar to earlier models but with improved hydrodynamics. The result was an aerodynamically clean aircraft far superior to previous flying boats. After its maiden flight on March 21, 1935, the Navy was sufficiently impressed to order 60 aircraft in June 1935, eventually reclassifying it from a patrol aircraft, P, to a patrol bomber, E, PB, thus creating the designation that would become legendary, PBY. Catalina earns its wings in World War II. In the opening days of World War II, the lumbering Catalina flying boat seemed almost comically outmatched against nimble enemy fighters. Picture yourself as a PBY pilot in 1941. Your aircraft carried a top speed of just 179 mph while enemy interceptors closed in at nearly twice that velocity. Would you bet your life on this ungainly craft? Why the PBY Catalina became indispensable. The skeptics were quickly silenced. Ordered by the U.S. Navy in October 1933, the Catalina satisfied a crucial requirement for long-range ocean reconnaissance. With a graceful fuselage and a wingspan stretching 104 feet, the PBY could remain aloft for distances exceeding 2,000 miles, making it the strategic eyes of the fleet. What truly made this seaplane exceptional was its gradual transformation into a multi-role platform. Navy visionaries like Rear Admirals Ernest King and William Pye saw beyond mere surveillance, equipping Catalinas with 4,000 pounds of bombs, anti-shipping mines, or depth charges. Additional armor plating enabled crews to withstand significant damage and still return home. Of the 60 Axis submarines sunk by the U.S. Navy in all theaters, fully 25 met their fate under bombs from PBYs. Throughout the conflict, approximately 3,300 PBYs were produced, serving in every operational theater of World War II. Beyond hunting submarines, these versatile aircraft escorted convoys, transported cargo, and performed the rescue missions that would make them legendary. How it spotted the Bismarck and changed the war. Consider Britain's precarious position in May 1941. Its survival hinged upon Atlantic supply convoys vulnerable to German warships. Among these predators, none inspired more dread than the battleship Bismarck. On May 26, 1941, an RAF Coastal Command Catalina, flying from Northern Ireland, located the elusive German warship. At the controls was Ensign Smith, a U.S. Navy pilot on loan to train RAF crews. As his Catalina emerged from cloud cover, Smith reported, "At 10:10, I sighted what was first believed to be Bismarck. Suddenly, his aircraft was met by a terrific anti-aircraft barrage. Despite damage from the fusillade, Smith's crew transmitted the Bismarck's position. Within 24 hours, the mighty German vessel lay at the bottom of the Atlantic. Through this single reconnaissance flight, the Catalina had altered the course of the naval war."
I had the good fortune the other day to be on the Catalina flying boat that was the first to find the Bismarck after she had been temporarily lost. We set off from our base at about 3:30 in the morning, and after about 7 hours' search, we came across her right across our tracks. She was only a dull black shape in the mist at first, so we had to come closer to make a clearer identification. We altered the course to starboard. We were flying low at the time, but climbed up to about 1,500 feet into the clouds. But unfortunately, the cloud ended right over the ship, and we got everything she'd got in the way of anti-aircraft. We had to keep away from the Bismarck for a while we inspected damage done to the hull of the aircraft by shrapnel. Luckily, this wasn't too bad, and the holes that were made in the hull below the waterline were quickly plugged. While in the barrage, we had sent off a signal reporting the position of the enemy. This signal was intercepted by another Catalina aircraft, which was searching an area to the north. She proceeded immediately to the spot and eventually relieved us. This was just as well, as it was imperative that we should land at our base in daylight, owing to the holes in our hull. We landed just after 9:30 in the evening.
The role of the Catalina in the Battle of Midway. The Catalina's finest hour arrived in June 1942 at Midway, the pivotal naval engagement that would determine control of the Pacific. Admiral Nimitz dispatched 32 PBY Catalinas to locate Admiral Yamamoto's approaching fleet.
Up until the Battle of Midway, the U.S. Navy, quite frankly, was not having a good war. They had only been able to score some hit-and-run raids against Japanese islands. So the Battle of Midway was very much a showdown in which the U.S. Navy was going to put it all on the line to stop the Japanese fleet.
On June 3rd, these scouts achieved what centuries of sailors could only dream of. They found a needle in the Pacific's vast haystack, spotting the Japanese First Air Fleet. That night, VP-44 Catalinas executed the first torpedo run against the enemy, surprising them completely and damaging the tanker Akebono Maru. The following morning, VP-23 spotted two of Admiral Nagumo's aircraft carriers and relayed this critical intelligence to Admiral Fletcher aboard USS Yorktown. This timely information enabled American carrier aircraft to strike the vulnerable Japanese fleet, sending 4 carriers to the bottom in a decisive victory.
In the Battle of Midway, there were some elements that played a great role, and certainly that was finding where the Japanese fleet was. And code breaking played a role in that, but it still required an aircraft to spot the ships. And it was here that the PBY played a pivotal role in the battle, because it was PBYs that spotted not only the invasion force destined for Midway, but more importantly, spotted the carrier force.
After the battle, Catalina spent 10 days performing air-sea rescue missions, recovering sailors and airmen who would otherwise have perished in the Pacific's immensity. From vulnerable patrol aircraft to battle-changing reconnaissance platform, the Catalina had earned its wings at last. Black cats strike under cover of night. The midnight sky over the Solomon Islands concealed a deadly secret in late 1942, matty black. Catalina flying boats prowling silently through darkness. As the Allies gained daylight air superiority, Japanese forces shifted to night movements of troops and supplies. In response, the U.S. Navy created what would become legendary, the Black Cat squadrons. What made the Black Cat Catalina flying boat so feared? Have you ever tried to spot a black cat at night? Now imagine that cat is a massive aircraft, painted entirely in light-absorbing matte black, skimming just above Pacific waters. The Navy transformed the slow, vulnerable PBY Catalina into a nighttime predator through several crucial modifications. Crews applied a mixture of soap and lamp black to eliminate any reflective surfaces. Additionally, flame arresters covered exhaust stacks. Cockpit windows were darkened, and only dim red lighting illuminated instrument panels. What had been the Catalina's greatest weakness, its ponderous speed, suddenly became its strength. At night, this deliberate pace allowed gunners precious extra seconds to aim at targets. The aircraft's new radio altimeter permitted crews to fly dangerously close to the water's surface, effectively countering enemy fighters who risked crashing into the ocean if they pursued.
Skipper always had us doing things. And he'd say, you guys in the blisters, I want you to keep an eye out. And if he ever saw anything, and we didn't see it first, we was in bad trouble. we reported seeing something before he did, or he'd said, all right, what's going on back there? You guys sound asleep? The searchlight come right on, and everything gets all light up in the plane. Said, uh-oh. We just kept right on going, and the light went off somewhere else. So they never did see us. Never would see us.
How stealth and surprise turned the tide in the Pacific. The black cat flies tonight. This simple message to Marines on Guadalcanal signaled the beginning of a revolutionary campaign. These night operations proved devastatingly effective against Japanese supply lines, particularly the Tokyo Express, convoys delivering reinforcements and supplies to enemy garrisons. The statistics tell a remarkable story. VP-11 squadron sank an estimated 75,000 tons of shipping, including a cruiser, destroyer, fleet tanker, and multiple warships. Collectively, Black Cat missions sank approximately 2.8 million tons of Japanese naval and merchant shipping. U.S. Navy Squadron VP-52 destroyed or damaged 16 enemy ships between November 1943 and June 1944. The psychological warfare of night bombing. Beyond physical destruction, the Black Cat specialized in psychological terror. After dropping bombs with 5-second delays, crews deployed illuminating flares that temporarily blinded Japanese gunners. Thereafter, as the aircraft strafed targets, they unleashed their most bizarre weapon, empty beer bottles with razor blades inserted in the necks. As these improvised devices fell through darkness, they created an unearthly, haunting scream that instilled panic among Japanese troops. Australian crews particularly embraced this tactic when conventional bombs ran short. The psychological impact was devastating. Invisible attackers that could strike anywhere, anytime, announcing their presence with ghostly wails before explosions ripped through ships. For 3 years, from September 1942 until spring 1945, these night hunters owned the darkness, forever changing naval warfare through a perfect marriage of technological adaptation and psychological warfare. Crews survive against impossible odds. Between life and death in the vast Pacific hovered a singular hope, the silhouette of a lumbering Catalina flying boat. For thousands of downed airmen and shipwrecked sailors, these ungainly aircraft represented their only chance of survival in endless hostile waters.
The radioman was killed. He was sitting right behind me. The mechanic was shot through the chest, and those were the 2 big casualties that we had. The rest of us all had small shrapnel in us. And when we got away from there, our port engine was starting to burn. But that sucker flew, and we noticed some dots on the horizon. Never saw such pretty pieces of palm trees in our life. When we stopped, Then we started getting kind of worried because we really didn't know at that time where we were and whether it was friendly or enemy. So we climbed out of the airplane and stood there with our big 45s in our hands and waited. All of a sudden we see this dot just off the water underneath this black cloud heading right for us, and it looked like a seaplane. Well, at that time, we didn't know whether it was a Japanese seaplane or whether it was an American seaplane, so we didn't do anything. And we waited and waited and waited till the last minute, and then we could finally make out that it was a Catalina. And we were jumping up and down and yelling at him, but Santa Claus has nothing on that airplane. The relief that you feel when you have a friend that just flies by like that there is, well, you can't describe it. We know then that we're home free.
The typical Catalina carried 7 to 9 men, each with specific duties that might suddenly shift from routine patrol to desperate rescue. What made these crews extraordinary wasn't just their flying skills, but their willingness to land in treacherous seas, often within range of enemy shore batteries.
Hey, I got news for you. They were all brothers under the skin, boy, after that one there, and there was no doubt about that. We stayed close for a long time. Yeah.
Have you ever imagined picking up survivors while enemy guns are targeting your aircraft? On February 15, 1944, Lieutenant Nathan Gordon of VP-34 performed 4 separate water landings in Kavieng Harbor under intense Japanese fire. His overloaded aircraft successfully rescued 15 officers, earning Gordon the Medal of Honor, the only PBY pilot so honored. Yet perhaps most astonishing was the rescue following a December 1944 battle in Ormoc Bay. 2 Black Cat crews from VP-34 landed amid debris-filled waters to retrieve survivors from a sunken destroyer. Lieutenant Joe Ball rescued 56 men, while Lieutenant Mel Essery saved 43 more, together rescuing 102 men from certain death. Nothing illustrated the Catalina's significance better than its passenger capacity limits, which crews regularly ignored. One Australian Catalina carried 87 Dutch sailors after Japanese bombers attacked. Their freighter, standing room only in an aircraft already pushed beyond its design limits. For many sailors from the USS Indianapolis, their salvation came when a Catalina commanded by Lieutenant Adrian Marks spotted them in shark-infested waters. With no more room inside his aircraft, Marks had men tied to the wings, transforming his flying boat into a temporary sanctuary until rescue ships arrived. For 3 years, these remarkable aircraft and their determined crews defied impossible odds, turning what might have been certain death into what survivors called the sweetest sight in the world, a Catalina descending from the sky.
Usually, bonding shows up after an incident or an accident. If the pilot manages to evade and get the plane back without being shot down, he is the biggest thing in the world to that crew. So now they've bonded to the pilot, and the crew has bonded together as one. You could see it happen, and when I was on the islands in the South Pacific and the PBYs would come back from their patrol, you could tell that there's a changeover. All of a sudden, they're like brothers. You can't come between them.
Catalina outlives the war and finds new purpose. The Catalina flying boat, far from becoming obsolete, embarked on a remarkable civilian afterlife. Considering nearly 3,300 Catalinas were built, you might be surprised to learn how few remain airborne today. As of 2023, approximately 14 to 17 airworthy Catalinas and Cansos still grace our skies, with another 7 undergoing restoration to flyable condition. Comparatively, Only 3 of the 18,000 B-24 Liberator bombers produced remain airworthy today. What makes this even more remarkable? The last U.S. Navy Catalina wasn't retired until January 3, 1957, over a decade after the war ended. From water bomber to safari plane, the Catalina's second life. When militaries worldwide gradually phased out their flying boats, these versatile aircraft found astonishing new roles. Fire services quickly recognized their potential. A single Catalina water bomber could scoop up 8,000 pounds of water in just 14 to 17 seconds. Other Catalinas transformed into flying luxury yachts for the wealthy, commanding prices around $265,000 in the 1950s, roughly $2.5 million today. Have you ever imagined taking an aerial safari? Numerous Catalinas served as African safari planes, while others supported fishing expeditions in Canada. One particularly famous Catalina belonged to Jacques-Yves Cousteau, who used a PBY-6A for his underwater explorations. The ultimate testament to this aircraft's enduring legacy, in July 2023, Catalina Aircraft announced plans to build brand-new Catalina II aircraft. These modern versions will feature turboprop engines, pushing cruise speeds to p. 213 mph, nearly 100 mph faster than the originals, with production beginning by 2029. Why resurrect an 80-year-old design? Because its fundamental capabilities, water landings, enormous range, and versatility remain as valuable today as they were in 1945. Indeed, the Catalina wasn't just a wartime necessity, but a timeless design that continues to inspire aviation enthusiasts worldwide.